so we can just go from here.
Wait, what were you just saying? Let's talk about the restaurant.
Just that there would be definitely a problem with my satellite tenants, and for a fact is there will be competition. Like it's not avoidable at this point. If you do want to open a restaurant, and we already have restaurants, which we will, there will be competition. So it's a problem for me, but I can see how as a store, as a Summit, it's in your interest to remain flexible in the market. So I can understand that. But like I said, to like alleviate you from this problem, I would also need like an equal return on my end, which is I want. What I gave, the 70% was the least. I wanted at least a 70% commitment from you. That, look, for 70% of the loan, we're going to be here and not abandon you and leave you bankrupt. And I feel like 80% in return for your ability to open a restaurant is fair.
Right. So basically, you'll give us the option to open a restaurant.
While I shouldn't, I will give you that option, yes, because if you were to solve this problem for me, basically. Because I want to go to the bank tomorrow and be like, look, Summit Storage is in this full way. So they're saying that 80% of the time they'll be here with us. So it's not a big problem.
Option to open a restaurant in exchange for 24 years, where you will, like, it'll be that...
Well, you will not assign your space
without
anyone.
Without, talking.
Well, yeah.
Like, it's how it's worded in your version of Article 22.
Yeah.
Which says we would need express written approval.
Yes.
Okay. 24 years of, I'm just going to expressed written approval, EWA, or, what is it?
Or assignment.
Assignment. And then, could we determine it with subsequent years of net loss?
Yeah,
or
we can do it like we discussed.
The only thing I'm thinking about, so if it, let's say in 10 years, we have 3 years of net loss in a row in this store, we could still assign with your express written approval, and in that situation, you'd probably be thinking the same thing because you're losing money too. So it's still a possibility that we can adapt.
No, I mean, I could see a situation where maybe in year 10, if you were making losses and you came to me and you presented your case, and I could go like, okay, if you're making such losses and you're not attracting enough customers anymore, we can consider a situation where we'll have another anchor come in.
Okay.
If it was the right anchor.
Okay.
So, I mean, this is not saying that I'm going to hold you in my store if you're making losses for 24 years.
Right. So, for 24 years for assignment, and then economic factors, we'll say, which we can figure that out later.
Okay.
Like the specifics, how many years of net loss, for example. So I think for that to work,
just on the restaurant side, I just want to make sure that it still fits your character. So it will be it should be a high-end restaurant.
Converser's Union Oyster.
Is it for sure? It's a fact that it's going to be seafood, right?
The owners of this high quality Boston fish restaurant.
Okay, so luxury seafood restaurant.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. To open.
High-end luxury, whatever you like.
Yeah. So to open high-end. But what I was going to say for this, and the reason I'm not putting in seafood, is because, so these are both substantial concessions for both of us, but if I'm going to give that much control over assignment stuff, I want to protect my number one concern of use.
Okay, which is, I was thinking that was the restaurant.
Right, but it's a more broader concern than
Okay.
just the restaurant, right?
Okay.
So basically, I'm thinking that I would want the sentence from Article 22 to be the use sentence. So the premise hereby demise may be used for any lawful purpose. And then we'll change the lease and sublet depending on what we decide. Because that's the main concern, so I want to maintain freedom.
So which part specifically?
It's the very first sentence of our version of Article 22.
Okay.
Basically just saying that for use, we don't need to get written approval from you guys. And so that would take into account the restaurant as well as changes in our products or our design of the store, for example, depending on what issues are under use.
But you can see how that would just potentially mess with our principle of keeping the character of the mall.
So what if we go back to Summit will maintain the store's character style to the character style store in its chain, which Summit's change is likely to occur. So we'll limit how we change this Summit store to how all of our Summit stores chains are.
Does Summit already have a plan to change its brand image?
No. They're not
So
planning
you just
to
kind
make
of
any changes.
you're preparing for change in market conditions.
Yeah, it goes back to that freedom to adapt to changing market conditions. But as of now, there's no plan to change. And so the issue that this is a concern for Summit is because the local market, the jobs could go away. But as a whole, the chain isn't going to change that much because you're not going to see the entire world change
At once.
substantially within the
Okay.
next 30 years.
Okay, how about for half of the time you need written approval to change? Not that we will say no as long as it fits the character of the mall. And for the rest of the time you can change, but you would still have to limit it to maintain the high-end luxury appeal of Summit.
And by that you mean this bullet point, as long as it fits the character and style of the chain.
Yes.
15 years of express written approval. I don't think I can give both of those to you.
Because the way I saw it was that you would expand your market if economic conditions changed.
Yep.
So those 15 years would kind of be a buffer, which would say, which I basically have, like I have some control over the fact that you're not going to come in and change in a year or two.
But understand that the changes that we're talking about are those less drastic changes, like the effects of a lesser change shoe store to a jean shop, which don't necessarily impact the character of the mall in the same way that, say, a shoe store to a video arcade would affect it. Like, we're not going to turn into a video arcade, right?
Okay.
But there are little tweaks here and there that require us to need the ability to change our use.
Okay.
But because we wouldn't be changing the use outside of the brand of Summit as a whole,
Okay.
what you wanted when you wanted us would not change. The fact that you want Summit as your anchor tells me that anything that we change within that image
Yeah.
would be consistent with what you're already
Yes. And that's my concern.
Right.
That's literally is my concern.
So if we agree to keep it within the style and character of Summit, the Summit chain, I don't see the need to require express written approval.
Well, there's the little problem as well of the satellite tenants, because we will hire satellite tenants to like help you basically to complement what you are.
Yep.
So if you all of a sudden were like just start doing the exact same thing that the satellite tenants were doing as well, it would be a problem for everyone.
But does that make sense to you?
Okay.
That you would hire Summit
Okay.
as your anchor?
Yes.
Then you would build your mall and your satellites around Summit so that Summit and the anchor and
Yes.
the satellites complement each other.
Yes.
and then the entire chain would change to a point where it doesn't any longer complement those satellites? Does that make sense?
How do you mean? You're
What
asking me is, would you do it? Would it make sense from your perspective to do it?
No, I'm asking you because to me what you're saying does not make sense.
Okay.
This one right here.
What don't you understand?
So this is what we're saying.
Okay.
Summit will maintain this store, as in whatever the name of the mall is, character and style to the character and style of stores in its chain, which limits the changes likely to occur. So what you're getting, no matter what, is the Summit brand that it is right now, right? Because the Summit brand is not going to change drastically to the point where it.
I understand.
Okay.
I understand that. Okay, so I understand your concerns. My only concern is that, as is, the article is not financeable. Because the bank does not have any guarantee that you will not change drastically. While I understand that you probably wouldn't, the bank would like some guarantee of this. So what was my idea is, in the 15 years, that the fact that I have to give approval once we both agree. So it's not like I'm saying that I'm going to say no, you can't do this, because I want you to make profit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want you to lose money. I want you to make profit because I make more money as well.
Yep.
But from the legal standpoint or the financing standpoint, that control has to be there, so that you can't go rogue. That's all that it is.
But you can't control everything.
I wouldn't be controlling per se. I would just have the final approval. So you would come with a proposal. This is how this is going to make us more money. This is why it's not a problem for the satellites, and this is why we can agree.
But understand that if you have final approval for anything,
well, it's not approval.
Have...
It's not control. It's because the other option is me telling you can do whatever you want.
Right.
And I just want the restrictions in there.
The way that I see it, it's pretty much a binary situation. Because if we do whatever we want, it's our control. But if we have to get consent from you, then you ultimately have the power to not let us do anything.
That was my thinking. That's why I said half of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, how do you think that I can get that guarantee that Summit will not take business away from satellite stores, and then Summit will stay true to its brand? How can I have that guarantee without having any say on what you do?
Well, this sentence right here guarantees that it will stay true to its brand.
Well, this is so you want to add this to the article?
Yeah, that is the concession right there, is to add that, limiting us to only act in the same ways that Summit as a whole acts. Because in that case, the store that you get will not differ dramatically from the store that you're planning for right now. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. But don't you think it's a little bit subjective? Like, two people could disagree on what does and does not make up a store, and this would still not cover the satellite store side of things. Like, you could obviously open the same restaurant that a satellite store has,
right?
Because it fits your image, which it probably does. If it's a high-end luxury restaurant, it will fit your image, but it will still conflict with one of my interests.
That doesn't really concern the restaurant part of it, because the restaurant obviously is not our...
Okay, we can leave the restaurant out of it for now.
But, so as a whole, what I'm trying to say here is your satellites are meant to what was the word you're using?
Complement.
To complement,
Summit, yes.
To complement Summit.
Yes. As it is right now. So my only problem is that if that changes, it may become less complementary and more competitive environment.
Right. But what I'm saying is that you know Summit based on its brand.
Yes.
And the chain as a whole.
Okay.
So if this store stays consistent with that chain as a whole, then the stores that you choose as satellites to complement that chain will also complement this store. because the chain and the store are going to be the same. Even if there's little changes here and there can't be, based on that sentence, any dramatic changes that would cause it to no longer be complementary.
Okay, I understand what you mean, but like, can you see the fact that if the satellites we pick are complementary to your store, it would mean that it is a potential expansion point for you. Like, if you saw that the store is doing well, and you don't directly have access to those profits, you could potentially say, hey, look, take 5% of our space, do the same thing, take some of those profits.
Oh, you mean for leasing?
For leasing and use, yeah.
So like say, hey, this satellite store is doing really well.
Yes.
So why don't we sublet?
Break into that market.
Why don't we sublet a competitor?
Yes.
So that's a subletting question.
Who would give us more of the profits as well?
That's a subletting question.
Well,
so
and the use, but yes.
What if to avoid that?
And two issues.
What if to avoid that? So for use, we've already kept that from happening because you're choosing stores that complement us rather than what's the word? Compete with us.
Well, it's like I said.
But subletting is different.
It's like I said. I mean, you can sublet a restaurant and you can use a restaurant.
Right. Well.
So you could still technically go into the business of the satellite stores.
Right. So that's something I'm a little bit.
But I understand. Yeah, I understand that you don't want me to have full control over what you can and cannot do once I have the final approval.
Right.
But okay, go ahead.
See, from my understanding, I feel like the restaurant is more of a subletting situation than a use situation.
Okay.
But does that make more sense to you?
I mean, it makes sense to me if it was a different company altogether and they were managing the restaurant exclusively. But from what I understand is it's under your wing. It's a subsection of Summit. So it would still be a use question, maybe, but it's relatable.
This isn't me negotiating. This is me telling you that while reading this, I read it like 3 times, and it didn't make sense to me that it's a use question. I personally think that it should have been under subletting.
Okay, from what you're telling me though, how I understand it to be a use question is that it's part of your brand now. Like, you're worldwide planning to implement this restaurant in your image.
But not this restaurant, just restaurants in general. So I'll read that part again.
Okay.
At the upcoming corporate planning meeting in Michigan, they're deciding whether Summit should consider adding restaurants serving high-quality local food in all U.S. stores. So, like, for this location near Boston, they've got this fish company, but in Seattle, it'll be a completely different restaurant. Fish restaurant, not fish company. But in Seattle, it would be a completely different restaurant. And it sounds like, to me, it's still its own restaurant.
Okay.
It's just in our location, which sounds like subletting to me, but it's saying it's a use question.
Okay.
So
I mean, for the purposes of this, we could just leave it as use.
I think we
kind of have similar.
So how about this? How about under use? Summit will maintain the store's character style to the character style of stores in its chain, which limits the change likely to occur. Also, no changes will be made to directly compete with satellite stores in the mall. And then we'll make an exception for the restaurant because there may be no way to avoid.
You see, but my concern, how would that work without my approval? It would still be a decision that's unilateral, and then you can bring subjectiveness into it. Look, okay, how about we take both of us out of this, okay? So we can both agree that we want these 2 things. We can both agree we want to maintain the character of the mall.
Yep.
And you can understand why I would want to keep the interest of my satellite stores as well as your interests.
Yep.
And keep you guys from basically butting heads. So how about any proposed change in use be voted upon by the satellite stores?
I don't know that I want the satellite stores to be deciding how.
Well, they wouldn't be deciding. They would just be deciding on whether this would increase customers to the mall or would it cause confusion and bring problems. So as long as you're saying that your change would bring will complement the mall, it would be in the satellite company store's favors. It would be their advantage to vote for the deal. I'm just saying it as a majority.
Right. I understand what you're saying. I completely understand it. But I don't think that the satellites have a place in determining the business decisions of Summit. That's
Okay,
my
not
concern.
of Summit, I agree with you, but at least of the mall, because they're putting a commitment in this as well,
Right.
on the guarantee that I'm saying that, look, this is my main anchor, and Summit is gonna bring customers for all of us,
Mhm.
and Summit is not gonna mess with your business either.
What other options do we have of guaranteeing that? So let's start making a list. Let's do some brainstorming. Um, so like, basically guarantees that our changes won't create competition with the other
Yes.
satellites. So guarantees against competition. So we have vote on
Just
by
approval.
satellites.
Yeah.
We have express written consent from you,
Yeah.
or approval. We had the sentence here about consistent with chain. What was I gonna say? I had an idea that might be agreeable for both of us. I'm trying to think what it was. So it was basically this, and then we wouldn't create competition, and the only exception was that didn't count to the restaurant, which might create competition, and then to decide what meant competition, it's like we wouldn't. See, that's the thing, is that I was going to say we wouldn't break into the same
Markets.
industry. Yeah, the same, basically, industry. So, like, if you have a satellite that is a shoe store is not a good example because we probably sell shoes. I don't know. I can't think of it. But let's say any industry. It's in that industry, then we wouldn't do that. But that doesn't make sense for use because we are our own industry and we're going to stick to our own industry, which becomes a subletting question.
Yeah.
So I think that your main concern with competition becomes a subletting question more so than a use question. Because we're gonna use our stuff.
Okay.
So if we go back to subletting, if you let us have control over our use, then we can have a situation where you, let's see, I'm trying to I don't want to give you express control over who sublets, but
Okay. Let's just talk about the sublet.
Okay.
Since it's like kind of the middle ground for us.
Yep.
And also will set the tone, I feel, for fixing this use issue.
Yep.
So for subletting, I mean, we don't like it. We don't like it, primarily because you're our main anchor, and if you do sublet, it obviously takes away the fact that there's a main anchor.
Mhm.
Like, the more you sublet, the less there is an anchor, you know what I mean? So we kind of, what we would like for you to utilize 100% space of the time throughout this project, but we can understand that you may need to sublet at least a small portion.
Mhm.
So did you have any kind of requests regarding this area?
In terms of how much, or in terms of what to sublet?
You do want to sublet.
I guess.
I mean, I'm not,
Yeah.
because I mean, ideally, I don't want you to sublet at all, you know? Ideally, we want you to be there 100%. So just kind of give me what you're thinking about this area.
So yeah, we want to be able to sublet. All I really know is that we want to be able to sublet,
Okay.
right?
So-
Because it helps maintain
Okay.
that freedom. In terms of how much
Okay.
or what kind of stores, we don't necessarily have a specific.
Okay.
So clearly, we want to make sure that they keep the character of the mall and the character of the store, and we want them to not compete with the satellite.
So the way I see it is that it's also very close to the use issue
Right.
in terms of what it might affect, which would be character of the mall, satellite tenants, financier. Now, I mean, like I said, I would like for you to not sublet. I want some stores for 100% of the space we give you, but I understand that sometimes it might be a better business decision for you guys to decide to sublet. So, I mean, we need to come to some kind of understanding as well. So, I mean, it's a massive space.
Right.
So just kind of the things that I don't want there would be, we don't want a separate entrance. We don't want like an isolated spot in the middle of the mall where it has its own entrance as part of your store.
Okay.
Because that, it kind of defeats the vibe and the purpose that we're one big mall working together.
Okay.
So we don't want like you to sublet to a company that's gonna basically wall themselves off, put a separate door,
Yep.
or like make it an office. Maybe like this is an office space and we're gonna be operating from here. We definitely don't want that.
Okay.
We would prefer that you'd sublet no more than 5% of the total space we give you, which is actually a pretty huge amount. I'm not sure if we have the exact space, but I think 5% is a big amount. And so long as you agree that you will not sublet to any company that defeats the character of the mall, so it would remain a luxury or high-end store that you would sublet into. Am I to understand that correctly?
There's no specifics, but yeah, we can, like, we're not against making sure that it.
So we will agree that it has to be with the character of the mall.
Yep.
And maybe that there should be some kind of approval, at least on who you're subletting to. You get where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
We definitely want some kind of approval in getting to say who comes in as a subletter.
You're asking for approval on all three of these issues?
Which three? Just
Use,
make sure.
subletting, and assignment.
Use, subletting, and assignment.
Basically, you're asking for control over all three of these, which
Well,
is my biggest concern.
I'm not asking for control. I'm trying to establish consistency.
If you're asking for approval, that is control.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
that's the big concern. So
Okay.
it's a control concern.
Okay.
That's what
It
I'm
is a
trying to
control
say.
concern in the sense that we would like to control what happens in the store. But it's like I said, if you can give me guarantees or restrictions, which would also limit how my principles are affected, I don't mind. Like, I'm fine with that.
So I'm trying to give restrictions that will negate the need for approvals. Restrictions that fit our needs as well as your needs. So that we can, instead of having all this option of possibilities, we narrow it to only the possibilities that help both of us. Right? That's kind of what we want out of
I
the
agree with you,
restrictions.
but it's kind of hard to figure out what these restrictions would be without being like, okay, you can say yes, I can say no, that kind of thing. So what I thought would fix this problem would be that we let the satellite companies vote. But I can understand where you would come in and be like, I don't want them having a say in the way forward for our company. So how about we put it in a mixture?
Say that again?
How about we put in a mixture of the vote? So let's say you have this idea that you want to sublet to this company or you want to break into this market. So far as it's a new development that we have not originally planned for. As far as it's a new development, we could have a scenario where you would make a proposal and yeah, so we could have a situation where you could make a proposal, we would come to the table and we would vote. Now we could break it up. We could break it up like say 30% right development, 30% summit stores, and 40% the satellite stores will vote on whether this will benefit the mall as a whole.
Maybe we should have it set up so that you and I well, Summit and Right have the majority, but then the tipping point is the satellites.
Wouldn't that kind of be the thing, where we have 30%, 30%, so if we both agreed, and the satellite stores who were in competition with you
So
don't want you to go in for it?
but with that situation, the satellites have 40%. They have more than either of us.
Then higher than either of us, which is, but together we have more than them. So we could still agree that this will help the mall. So even if the satellite companies were like, we don't want to lose business to Summit, I would still agree with you because I would think this would help the mall overall.
But I think it makes more sense to have you and I have, say, 40%, and then each of the satellites have 20%, because then it's a situation where, you know, we're making these are decisions about our store, and they concern you because it's your space. And then it concerns the satellites in that it might compete with them, but these are our business decisions.
Okay.
So it makes more sense for me to say we have 40%, you have 40%, and then if we don't agree, then you have a pretty much neutral party that changes the decision. But if we do agree, it doesn't matter.
Okay. Well, I mean, just to be fair, I think we all kind of have the say in this, in terms of at least of Summit expanded into other markets. But I think that's fair, to be honest with you. So, I mean, that works. If you have 40%, I have 40%, and if we disagreed, it would be kind of a neutral, objective look on how the mall would fare.
Because
That's fair.
I think that the satellites are probably, they're self-serving, but I think
they would not say no to something that doesn't affect their specific area. That's going to bring more customers to the mall.
Right, exactly.
That's how I see it.
Exactly.
So you would still have that room now to expand or do something that you want to do, while keeping the principles of character of the mall and satellite tenants.
So what are you proposing that we were to use this vote for?
So we're talking about subletting. So I'm saying that when you have a proposal on who to sublet to,
It's based on that vote?
it would just be based on that vote. Same with the use. Well, outside of the restaurant, because I already gave you that technically.
I can definitely understand the voting for the subletting,
Okay.
because that is the one that most predominantly affects the other,
Okay.
the satellites.
So subletting, what is it? 40, 20, 40?
Like we each get 40, they get 20.
Vote on proposals. And why does this not work for your use? I'm just a little confused.
Because I think that the use should be an internal decision based on the company. Because use decisions, let's see, is there a good explanation of what use is in here?
Yeah, just use would be your ability to sell whatever you want and developing your company in any way that you would like.
Right. I don't think that the other company should have such a substantial say in things like.
Well, they wouldn't, would they? I'm not sure I understand your concern, because they would not have any control over your company.
Not the company, but that store, they would have some control over it. They have 20% control over it, which might not be.
Not over the company, over expanded endeavors. So anything that would change from what you are now.
Right. So
That's all that it would affect.
But that is our main concern, is our ability to adapt in that situation. Right?
Okay, like I said, I have no problem with your adaptation. So I'm not sure. So your concern is that you may want to do something, and for some reason, I or the satellite stores may not want you to do that.
Yes.
And from where I'm coming from, the only reason that I may not want you to do that is if it messes with the character of the mall, or it causes unnecessary competition with the satellite tenants.
Right.
We can both agree on that.
Yes.
So, in the case where we voted on any expanded markets, why wouldn't that make sense? Because you would be protected in that we want you to make more profit so long as it doesn't mess with the character of the mall. And that's the only way the satellite companies will vote against you is if there's competition.
But my concern is that it wouldn't work the way that it's designed.
Okay.
So it's designed in a way that is perfect because it allows Summit to do what is in best interest in Summit, unless it is not in the best interest of the mall.
Yes.
But in practice, it may not operate that way. It may be, for whatever reason, imperfect because we have no control over how. So Summit has no control over your decision, and you have no control over, and we have no control over the satellite's decision. And now it's getting to be a very close to home kind of decision because it's an internal business decision if we choose to change our product line in some capacity, or if we choose to add a new product, or if we choose to get rid of a product.
Okay.
These
This
sorts of
is very well. It's very well in your right to change your product line or to expand anywhere you would like.
Mm-hmm.
But for the purposes of this mall, I just feel like some kind of restrictions are necessary in terms of into what markets can you go and to how far can you change who you are right now.
Mm-hmm. Which is why I think that it's fair to have a situation where we stay with the same style as the chain. There's an option to just limit. It says right here, Summit will limit changes to in use to those that do not conflict with the satellite tenants.
No, that's what I'm asking for. Yeah.
And then I guess that's what we want.
That's what I thought the vote would represent. But I mean, if there's another way that we can do this, I'm all ears, to be honest. Like I want both of us to be happy. So
Right.
Just let me know.
Me too.
Whatever works and hits all the criteria works for me.
What if, so you're saying that Summit gets 40% of the vote, Right gets 40% of the vote, and then if we don't agree, like I say, it does not conflict with the satellite tenants, you say it does conflict with the satellite tenants.
The vote goes to the satellite tenants.
Then the vote goes to the satellite tenants.
And
then
just,
if they agree that it does or doesn't.
yeah, it would be majority.
Right.
So the majority would be 20% no matter what.
Right.
Okay.
And so then, and other than that, other than the conflicting with the satellite tenants and maintaining, okay, I can see that for conflicting with the satellite tenants. And then how about in terms of protecting the character of the mall?
Mm-hmm.
We obviously are, like Summit doesn't contradict the character of the mall. Summit is high
as
end.
Yes.
Summit is high end.
It's based on the way.
The character of the mall is high end. But that could change, right? Because the character of the mall could be high end, and then these jobs could go away, and all of a sudden, the area doesn't have high end buyers. So, I think that this is just an option. So we have this vote, right?
Yeah.
For the satellites, us, and you, to determine if any changes in use conflict with the satellite tenants.
Yes.
But we still need to protect your character of the mall. So I think that an option would be to have, let's say, an annual meeting between Right and Summit to go over the current market of the mall.
Okay.
And so that in that way we can say like, hey, the mall's market is becoming less high end.
Okay.
Because then that would give Summit the freedom to, if it needed to adapt to a less high end market,
Okay.
it could, but it would still be able to be consistent with Right. If Right determines that it also needs to pursue
Yeah,
a
I
less
agree
high
with
end
you.
market.
Wouldn't the vote, isn't that a control for it, kind of, don't you think? Because even if the satellite stores disagreed with you,
So that, well,
And
there's two
I'm
different
like-
votes.
Yes, but then I'm like, we're both making money.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
we're both losing money if the economy goes down. I'm like, we're
Yeah.
both losing money. So if it's necessary for you to become less high end, I don't see why that would be against my interest.
Right, because chances are we're
Yes,
both
because
gonna
I
be in
would
the
most
same.
likely still vote against the satellite tenants, and even if they voted that you should not be able to be more middle.
Well, but I'm saying this is a separate vote from the satellite tenants.
Okay.
Or they can be involved in it if you think that they should be.
But
But
then,
I'm saying this is separate because the other vote
yeah,
is Summit is making a change.
Yes.
Does this conflict with anyone?
yes.
And this
So
vote
this would be
is
regarding like the subletters or like you're expanded into markets.
this is more of that's the vote with the subletters.
Yes.
This vote is more of an analysis of the current economic conditions that we're in
Okay.
and saying does this high-end mall
Mhm.
image still fit the market we're in? Does that make sense? They're two separate
It does. It does make
issues.
sense.
But then that way, it protects, the vote that you brought up protects the satellite tenants. The vote that I brought up protects the character of the mall. And together, they'll help protect the finances.
Okay. So what is the second vote exactly? What is
So
what is it?
what I'm proposing is every year,
Okay.
Summit and Bright come together and
Okay.
do like a market analysis of the
Okay.
mall, um,
Area.
of the area. And,
Okay.
and we can say, hey, white collar jobs have decreased 50% in the last 18 months. We may not, this high end persona may not be working, may be able to work in the future. Or we could also
Okay.
say high end jobs are steady, the market conditions haven't changed, we can continue to operate under a high end persona. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So that way,
I'm just confused how this is different from the profit scenario though, because isn't that a more direct measure of how you're doing as a store in the high end market? Because like whether or not the health industry jobs are going up or down is irrelevant if, for example,
if they're still
there's
we're still making
because especially if there's like other jobs being created in the economy, it wouldn't matter what the health industry is doing.
Okay.
So I think a more direct measure of if this is viable or not would be your direct profits.
Yes, I just think, I was just trying to, I don't know, I was going along with the same, I'm trying to think of why I was bringing that up. I was just looking at your needs right there, right? So for being consistent with the character of the mall, I was trying to align Summit with Right so that any changes that Summit made would be changes that were helped Right.
Okay.
But let's see, I'm trying to think. So what you're saying is like that, for example, net loss in subsequent years instead.
Yeah.
And that was wasn't that for
Assignment, but that was assignment is you're basically leaving the mall. That's worst case scenario.
right?
Like
Which is not
once it
something
comes
that-
down to assignment, subletting and use like have no like they're not even part of the film.
Right. So if it's, I don't think that fits as well for use. I think that is what prompted me to say the character of the mall analysis kind of thing.
Okay.
Was that, so if we get, let's say the number we decide on is 3 years, random number, that's not what we're gonna decide on.
Okay.
But let's say 3 years of loss,
Mm-hmm.
and then we can change the use of our product. That
Okay.
doesn't make this, or
Okay.
the character,
Okay.
I guess.
I'm not gonna say I'm just gonna like take in your concerns.
Right.
So your concern is that you want a period after which if your business is not profitable to kind of diversify into less high end.
No, what I'm saying is that kind of is how the net loss situation kind of aligns itself to that decision making. What I'm saying is that it's got nothing to do with that. For the use issue has nothing to do with that. The use issue is, so Summit wants to change, theoretically, wants to change its use.
Mm-hmm.
So there are two checks that we have to go through.
Yes.
Does it hurt the satellites?
Yes.
You made a vote.
Yes.
That I think I agree with.
Mm-hmm.
That would protect against that. Or does it change the
Got it.
character of the mall? And I think that another vote between,
I just felt
but
like
then at that point it's just express written approval
Yeah.
is fine.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But I'm just saying that I think that that neutral voting system should work for any changes from what you are.
Say that again? I don't understand.
I'm saying that that neutral mode of voting, where you get a say, I get a say, and the satellite stores get somewhat of a swing say,
Yes.
is it's consistent with these principles
Right.
to any new changes. Like I don't see why you would be hurt by this unless it was gonna hurt us more
Right.
at the mall as a whole.
Right. So do you want to just do a vote of the same nature? Like, so if we were going to do a
Yeah.
change, does it hurt the satellites? 40%, 40%, 20%. Does it change the character of the mall? 40%, 40%, 20%.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds fair to me. You would have a presentation proposal, explain market conditions, explain maybe why you want to make this move and why this would bring customers to the mall. Because if you are making losses, the satellite tenants are probably making losses as well.
Right.
So they would be in favor of just opening up profits again.
But how drastic of a, well, I was going to say how drastic of a change is required before we have to go to a vote. Because there's no way to quantify that.
Yeah.
I'm thinking,
I mean,
if it's a very subtle change that no one cares about.
yeah, if it's you just changing the brand of perfume you're selling,
Right, that's fine.
you don't need anyone's permission to do that.
But,
But if you're,
well, so here's the thing is that it'd be easy for us to go to you and say, hey, we're doing this, is that cool with you? Yeah, it's cool with us.
yeah.
And it's
But-
a really quick decision.
Yeah, that's what I initially said, but I think you were saying that it was still that I would have the power because of so long as approval depended on me saying yes,
Mhm.
that I had the power. So this voting system was kind of like a fix to that.
Right, so that you
Yeah,
don't
so
have the.
whereas I don't have, so even
But
if I
if we
said no,
agree-
something could happen.
But if we agree,
Yes.
then the other vote doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that I've gotten a little off track because because Summit is concerned about maintaining control over, or freedom over their decisions.
Okay.
That I've kind of looked into this without even realizing it as kind of a competitive situation, but it's not. This is a balanced concern
Yeah,
for a
that's what I'm
relationship.
saying. I felt like we had for the most part
Right.
an agreement.
Right, and so what I'm saying, I guess, is that I'm kind of looking at it as if your ability to control the vote.
As a power kind of control.
Right, as a power over us.
Yes, and what I'm trying to say is that I don't necessarily want power, so far as I get some reassurances.
Right, right.
So I don't mind.
But what I'm saying, I'm just trying to, I'm like thinking
Yeah.
out loud right now.
Yeah.
Is that, so what I'm thinking in my head is that we're always going to be butting heads, where I'm going to be like, or someone's going to say, hey, we want to do something, you're immediately going to say no, and then we're going to butt heads. But chances are, if someone wants to do something, it's in the best interest of
Of the
right,
mall.
and they're going to agree anyway.
That's what it looks like.
So I think I got in the way of this a little bit, but I think that it makes, I think I'm kind of like having a little bit of an epiphany, and I think it's going to work out better. So basically what we're saying for lease or for subletting and for subletting and use, we're going to have it go to a vote in terms of what can be done, so that we make sure that we protect the character of the mall and the satellite tenants.
Yes.
And then, assuming that those two checks are fine, then someone can do it once.
Yeah.
To
Pretty much.
to maximize its effectiveness in the market. Okay.
Is there anything else that you kind of have on the agenda?
Well, we still need to figure out.
Well, we have to figure out the details.
Right, the details. But
is
I
there
think that
anything new?
So I think that makes makes sense. There were issues of having some say in other anchor stores.
Mhm.
Are there going to be other anchor stores?
None that I am aware of,
Okay.
but
Can we throw in something that says that any new anchor stores added, that Summit would have a say, like a, I'm trying to think of, like a way to give Summit a say in what other anchor stores are added, if that were to happen?
okay. I mean, what's kind of your concern? What's the underlying interest that you
Pretty much competition.
competition?
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, if the mall were to expand, there would, I guess, yeah, there would need to be other anchors.
So maybe open up a vote in the same way, 40-40-20, that, well, it's a little bit different though.
Yeah, it's a little bit different in that. Okay.
Are there
just-
plans
just-
for the mall to expand?
I know there is a letting for it.
There's a what for
There's
it?
like a letting, like kind of like a
To allow
just
the
like an idea
possibility?
a
Okay.
possibility of just in case business goes well,
Yep.
we may need to expand. How would we expand?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Because there may be a need for other anchor stores.
yes, if the mall becomes bigger, yeah, because the big malls have 2-3 anchor stores, from what I understand. So, but the problem with that is that there's like a limited number of stores that can fulfill,
anchor stores.
yeah, to actually be anchor stores and attract customers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably to no surprise of yours that one of our considerations right now, and the stores we're talking to as well, is Bayside.
Okay.
So I don't know whether Bayside is the kind of store you would like to work with or not, as an anchor. Or co-anchor.
As like another anchor?
As a co-anchor. If there was expansion, it's a direct competitor to you guys.
Yes.
So what you're saying is you don't want Bayside to be even a co-anchor if we were to expand.
Yeah, I would say out of all the companies, Bayside would be the least likely that we would want as a co-anchor.
Well,
Let me look into this really quick, because I hadn't really considered this, to be
Yeah.
completely honest.
I mean, I wasn't aware that expansion was. I thought that was just side information, to be honest.
Right, me too.
But
Because it was just one thing, like at the end, he was like, here's some other issues you can
yeah.
think of, and that's one of them, is some say in other anchor stores. I think it's in here. So the reason that we're concerned is because we've been losing market share in the Northeast
Okay.
to Bayside stores.
Okay.
Or we've been losing it in the Northeast. Oh yeah, to Bayside stores, which are a major competitor. So this is kind of like our penetration into this area.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a way that you could use a different store as a co-anchor if you were to expand, other than Bayside?
If I like understand the situation properly,
Mhm.
the overview of it is that you don't want a situation where we expand and we hire your direct competitor,
Right.
which is actually Bayside.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. From my side, I don't want to be limited to the anchors which I can hire,
Yep.
like, in any way at all,
Yep.
because that would lower my negotiations with the future stores.
Mm-hmm.
But I can understand what you're saying, that if I hire them, they would compete with you, and that's definitely against your interests. So, what kind of understanding could we come to about this? Um, does the vote work for you as an equal kind of ground?
The reason I don't think that works is because I don't think the satellite stores have any concern over.
Well, their interests would be considered in the decision overall.
Right,
And I
but
just kinda wanted to
so
represent
they're
that.
not going to be competing with us, which means they also won't be competing with.
But they could potentially be competing with the second anchor as well, in the same way that they could compete with you. They would also not want to compete with the second or the third anchor.
Right.
Yeah.
But in terms of what company to add, we are competitors. So maybe you chose us over them, but we're very similar. So if if your satellites work well with us, chances are they're going to work well with Bayside as well in the same way that they complement each other.
Okay, so you're worried that it would be in my interest and the satellite store's interest.
Right. So I see a very likely situation where you guys would tend to agree, even if
where you
disagree.
will not.
So it'd be a 60-40
Okay.
split, more likely than not.
Okay.
So that's what I see there.
So I mean, well, just from what my boss said, is that an anchor should have no say in who a second or third anchor should be. But I mean, I feel like I kind of need to address your concern as well. I mean, how about we just rule it out? We give you exclusivity from Bayside. So I will guarantee you that it's not going to be Bayside, but I can't really give you anything.
But other than that, you have control.
Yeah,
I can agree to that.
I think that's fair.
Because yeah, I think that can work. Okay, well that was a lot easier than the other issues.
Yeah, I think so.
And then the other thing that was a potential like negotiating point
Yeah.
was having some say in the satellite stores within say 10 stores of us.
Okay. I feel like that's like a auxiliary kind of thing. Okay, go ahead.
The reason I think that is a concern
Mhm.
is because we're worried about competition
Mhm.
or character,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that we're working to alleviate those tensions.
So, so repeat that again. You want to say
Right.
in.
In the stores immediately around Summit. So that's a possible like other thing.
Okay.
But here's the things that I'm not terribly concerned about it. I don't feel the need to necessarily negotiate about that because we've done so much to focus on decreasing competition
Yeah.
and focusing
Just
on
maintaining the
character.
main principles.
And so I
That
don't
it
see
technically should not be a problem.
right
That I
that's
can
what I'm saying.
foresee.
That's what I'm saying.
But I can understand it as a concern.
Um,
I mean, we can talk about it. We can just put it there.
Okay.
So what is it? Just
Like-
proximity.
right. We'll say 10 with a
So
10
I mean,
stores.
what kind of say are you looking for? Like, because the problem is the leases are like negotiated separately. So like, would it
each other?
like each store, you know?
Yeah.
So once that is done, is someone gonna come in and be like, we don't like the fact that this store is 2 stores away from us? Because that could be a problem for us, because that's how we use the leases to get the financing.
But the other stores, like I'm assuming that the other stores won't, like some locations are better than others, right? So another
Yes.
store might want to be near us.
Yes, no, all
Right.
the stores will technically want to be near you, because
Okay.
you would be the prime attraction.
True. Okay.
For customers. So everyone will technically want to be near you. But having said that, now that you tell me that you may or may not open a restaurant, I'm probably not going to put a restaurant more than 5 stores from you.
How about that? How about we
Yeah.
agree to keep, because I don't really see much of a concern about this, except maybe if there's a